So in Dr. Mohit's case, it was a young patient who came with vitreous hemorrhage, and no clue was available in the other eye. Otherwise, wherever possible, we look for, especially in the extreme periphery, to rule out areas of vasculitis so that we know what is the reason in such young patients. Otherwise, what other etiologies that can lead to vitreous hemorrhage generally are most common we encounter is proliferative diabetic retinopathy, followed by vascular occlusions. And very commonly in older age, we see acute PVT with either vessel avulsion or retinal tear. Trauma, if it is there, is obvious. And uncommonly, we see proliferative retinopathies related to sickle cell retinopathy or blood dyscrasias, but very commonly in young patients, Eve's disease kind of picture is relatively common whenever we encounter vitreous hemorrhage. If there is evidence of uveitis, obviously there could be presence of peripheral neovascularization, which would have led to vitreous hemorrhage. So how to go about in a case of vitreous hemorrhages? First, we have to try to see the periphery with the indirect ophthalmoscope. If otherwise it is not visible, for any clues, especially look for neovascularization of iris, gonioscopy, and rule out increase in intraocular pressure to have some clue regarding occlusion or neovascular glaucoma, and then any evidence of uveitis in the anterior segment or in the other eye. If there is no view, then we need to do B scan to rule out RD or PVT. If there is RD, obviously a patient needs urgent surgery. If there is no RD and vitreous hemorrhage is significant, we can wait for maybe a few days, and if it starts settling down, then we can see and look for any presence of any tears. In the meantime, we can do basic blood investigations and advise general like advise rest and head elevation, although it doesn't have that much of role. But even after a few days, we do B scan, and if there is no RD, we can wait. And after a few days, we repeat B scan if there is still no view. And if there is no RD, we can try intravitreal anti-VEGF if the patient has signs of history of diabetes or systemic hypertension or ischemic heart disease. We look for clues in the other eye, and accordingly we treat. After intravitreal Avastin, if the media starts clearing, then we try laser if it is related to diabetes or hypertension. Otherwise, we go for vitrectomy. So I'll be showing few case scenarios which will clear the picture. Like generally, we have a scenario which is most common is a patient above 50 years, especially myopic, if presents with the sudden onset of flashes followed by floaters. This is the most common scenario, and the other eye is normal. Most likely it is because of acute PVT with vessel avulsion or retinal tear, with or without RD. And we see the periphery and do a B scan, and then accordingly we treat further. Very important is to not to inject any eye with vitreous hemorrhage without knowing the cause. So this is one such patient where there is vitreous hemorrhage, and he underwent vitrectomy, and we could see peripheral tear with the localized RD. This is an important slide I want to share definitely because this patient had marked vitreous hemorrhage in one eye, other eye was normal, and he went to some other place and they advised injection Avastin. And as the patient could not afford, he came after 2 days to me, and I could see a giant retinal tear which was already extending more than 180 degrees. So since I advised urgent surgery, patient was confused that there is so much of difference between two opinions. So he did not turn up for the next day, and after 2 days, he came with 360-degree giant retinal tear. So of course, after surgery, he improved. But the point of showing this case is for general ophthalmologist, comprehensive ophthalmologist, that not in every patient of vitreous hemorrhage we should inject anti-VEGF without knowing the cause. So that would have extended it further. This is second scenario where the this is a patient, if generally patient of 50 years or so, and is a known case of hypertension or diabetes or ischemic heart disease, presents with vitreous hemorrhage. and the other eye is absolutely normal or shows some arteriosclerotic changes, then there is possibility of branch retinal vein occlusion, which might be there for a long time and patient might have missed until the patient has bled from neovascularization, raised fibrovascular proliferation. So in these cases, very important to rule out neovascularization of iris. And obviously, if the other eye is showing signs of diabetic retinopathy, then the things are very clear. This is one such patient, 48-year-old female presented with vitreous hemorrhage, and she improved little bit, and we could do angiography, and you can see she has 6/6 vision and total superior occlusion. After a few days, she had recurrence. Even we started PRP, but she bled again and underwent vitrectomy. So it is possible that even with good vision, they can have peripheral occlusions. This is the third scenario, like Dr. Mohit has discussed. Young patient coming with vitreous hemorrhage, and there is possibility of inflammatory etiology or trauma or Valsalva or any blood dyscrasias. So examination of the periphery is very important, and in such patients, after investigations, we can go ahead with vitrectomy if the patient is not improving, and then they need long-term treatment in the form of steroids or immunosuppression, and examination of the other eye is very important, and long-term follow-up very, very important. This is a young patient coming with vitreous hemorrhage in the left eye. Right eye was showing evidence of healed multifocal choroiditis, and the left eye you can see the anterior segment shows posterior synecdoche, and she underwent vitrectomy because the hemorrhage was not clearing. She had peripheral TRD. So at the time of silicone oil removal, Ozurdex implant is there, and she needed long-term treatment with steroids and immunosuppression. Another patient, young patient, 22-year-old female, again presented with bilateral vitreous hemorrhage. And in the periphery, we can see areas of frosted branch angiitis. This was possible to see even through dense hemorrhage. And we could see that this is a very, very complicated situation, and we need to really these patients for comprehensive ophthalmologists are not easy to manage. They need to be referred immediately to the tertiary care centers, because here the total vision can be lost within few days. So this patient is maintaining well even with the medical treatment in one eye, and the other eye required vitrectomy. Scenario 4 is an elderly patient comes with or without systemic disease, presents with vitreous hemorrhage, and has neovascularization of iris, although other eye has no signs of any diabetic retinopathy or hypertension, but he straightway presents with neovascularization of iris and high pressure. These patients need to rule out ocular ischemic syndrome, and carotid vessel disease need to be ruled out. These patients can present with featureless kind of retina, pale looking, and they can have peripheral retinal hemorrhages, present with neovascularization of disc, or in addition to NVI and vitreous hemorrhage. And FFA gives clues to the diagnosis, and they need extensive carotid workup as well as urgent PRP and anti-VEGF. This is the fifth scenario where the elderly patient comes with vitreous hemorrhage and no systemic disease, and other eye is showing some signs of VRMT, and in such patient there is possibility of PCV. B scan is very important, and one such patient, 70-year-old patient, presented with vitreous hemorrhage in the left eye, and on B scan we could see mounds of vitreous hemorrhage and with subretinal bleed. Possibility of PCV and masquerade syndrome was there, and he underwent vitrectomy, and you can see there was marked areas of subretinal bleed, and old and fresh hemorrhage was there. So ultimately improved after giving multiple anti-VEGF injections and vitrectomy. So less common causes of vitreous. Yeah,
Ravinder,
I can conclude. Yeah. So some of these patients can present with trauma and Turson syndrome. These are just to enumerate, so that general ophthalmologists should have some picture in their mind when they see a case of vitreous hemorrhage, that these are the pathologies which can be there. So knowledge about various causes can give clue to the diagnosis, and proper history and proper investigations, detailed examination saves unnecessary investigations. So treatment should be directed at the cause of underlying cause. Thank you, ma'am.